Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullahi wa ala alihi. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alim al hakim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Seems a bit strange to be involved in some kind of business deal before the dars starts, especially as I have nothing to do with it apart from that my name happens to be on the cover. But inshallah, the book hopefully will bring some benefit. And this is what my talks are going to be based around this text, which is why the brothers from Denmark had brought some copies to sell. But my intention is just to try and study something of the book and to link it closely to the theme that Shaykh Muhammad Muslim described yesterday. And I think the condition that I can put on the books is that anybody who's called Shaykh Muhammad Muslim is not allowed to purchase the book. This has to be a gift because this name is beyond, so that's an exception. So this is a gift, inshallah, from whoever, and I'll make sure that's sorted out afterwards, inshallah. So if there's anybody else called Shaykh Muhammad Muslim, then marhaba. So the theme that Shaykh Muhammad Muslim identified yesterday was beyond space and time. And the beauty of that title or that theme is that there's a great deal to explore there. And it fits nicely with this text because the title in Arabic is Kitab Fada'il al-Awqat. Fada'il al-Awqat. And anyone that has started a book or studied a book with me previously, they'll know that there's a lot to be learnt simply from the title. And this is the case. How are you? This is in particular this title. If you understand the title, you'll understand the book. So this is really quite worth reflecting on what's being said in this first section on the title. Because after that, once you know the title, actually the book becomes very straightforward. And the word fada'il comes from the word, is related to the word fadl. And as we know, all Arabic words go back to 3 letters, which are like the roots. And I like that word root because from the concept of a root, everything grows. So the meanings grow from this origin. So if we look at the root or of this word fadl, it has many meanings. But perhaps, let me just give it generally. It means to have blessing or increase or... And I want to jump to the next word and then come back, if that's all right. The word awqat is the plural of the word waqt, time. So that's why it's translated as times, specific times. Now, waqt is to do, if you translate it, it has several meanings. One is to fix a particular point, or to determine a particular thing. So it's all about limitation, or to define a thing. So the word waqata, means to fix a appointed time or an appointed place. And that's why when the Quran says, إِذَا رُسُلُ أُقِّتَتْ, and when the messengers are given their appointed time. Has anyone ever been in a court or parliament? And you know that in the parliament or in the court, you have an appointed time to start and you're expected to finish by a particular time. So this is what's mentioned with الرُّسُلُ أُقِّتَتْ. It means that when the messengers are given their appointed time, meaning Yawm al-Qiyamah, there will be a spot on that day where the messengers will be given a responsibility to say, I delivered the message. And then, as we know, those who believed in them from the last messenger, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will be then made shuhada for all of the others, because we are the ones that know about all the prophets that came before. Which is why we have this special sharaf, this special status, and we will have a special maqam, a special time on the Day of Judgment. Everyone will have their time. Some people will have longer. Depends how much you talked, actually. You know, it's true. Those that talk a lot will have a longer time. Why? Because every single word will be taken into account. So the more words you used, the longer your time. And one of the punishments on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, have you ever been in a queue where the person can't remember their PIN number? Oh, in Sweden, you don't use PIN numbers anymore. Those people are old enough to remember when people used cash or PIN numbers. And you're at the back of the queue and you think, oh, this queue is short. And then somebody in front of you, they can't get... Oh, you know the feeling? Oh, I should have gone in that queue. That's what it's like Yawm al-Qiyamah. Yeah, you'll be in front of somebody, they just talked non-stop all of their life. And every single word they're going to be asked about. I'm just hoping I'm going to be behind Hassan. Why? You know, because Hassan, he only said 25 words in that year. The year before, he only said 25 words. The year before, oh, he was very talkative. He said 50 words. And his time in Yawm al-Qiyamah will be only a few minutes. So I'm going to hopefully get him behind the queue behind him. So waqata means to fix and appoint a time. And of course, anyone that's been for Hajj or Umrah, where do you put on your ihram? The miqat. Miqat means the place and time that has been fixed. Because you cannot put on your ihram for Hajj today. Why? No, al-Hajj, no, you can put it on for Umrah, but you can't put it on for Hajj. Why? Al-Ashhur al-Hurum. It's only, Ashhur al-Ma'lumat, it's only specific months from the 1st of Shawwal to the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Then you can put, these are specific times that you can do this. And it's specific places, because if you transgress those miqat, if you go over the miqat, if you go over this appointed place, what do you have to do? You have to go back. And then make your intention again, which is why when you're flying, they'll say, you are about to approach the miqat. And this is the dua, this is the supplication for entering into ihram, if you're traveling on British Airways. I don't know what they do on Scandinavian Airlines, but it's very much, you're about to approach this miqat. So the word miqat, waqt, are all about limiting, defining, specific. And our life is limited. Our life is limited. And since I just said that, 2 of my breaths have gone. And another one. Which means I'm 1 breath closer to the final one. And tomorrow we will be 1 day closer to our death. And you don't understand this until you start to understand the value of each and every breath. This little guy is sitting with me because his mother isn't able to attend. The last time we were here, the 3 of us were together. And many things have happened since then. And one of those is that she became very ill. And she's now on oxygen 24 hours a day. And so we know the value of breath. Every time she breathes, she knows what breath means. Alhamdulillah, I'm fortunate enough that she's not the first person that I cared for that ended up in this situation where every single breath counted. Every single breath. And the blessing of that was that they knew they're going to die. And most of us don't realize that, or we don't take it in. We know it theoretically, but it actually takes some conscious effort to put it into our hearts that this is limited. And it changes your perspective on life completely. I'll give you an example, just, I transgress very quickly. I remember going for Hajj. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed to go for Hajj a few times, but there's one particular Hajj I remember. Now, if it was permitted to say this was the Hajj from hell, I would have said this was the Hajj from hell, but it's not permitted to say that, so I won't say it. But this group was the most difficult group of people I ever travelled with. It was really, really difficult. Alhamdulillah. I got to the hotel, and already Allah had tested my patience to almost the limit. Fortunately, I hadn't hit anybody, I hadn't broken my ihram, I hadn't swore, I hadn't even had thoughts of killing people yet. But it was Allah blessed me with that. And it was difficult. Alhamdulillah, we got to the hotel, I got everybody into their rooms, and I remember distinctly, of course I'm in ihram, so you only have these two pieces of cloth. And I remember somebody, please could you look after my bags while I arrange everything? You know what happened, don't you? So I did perform the Hajj that year with two pieces of cloth and not one penny. Nothing. Alhamdulillah, it was a blessed Hajj, but it was difficult. But one thing I remember was this one man who just had something about him. And I remember him coming in and giving me this shirt. Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you like a shirt? And I looked at it and I thought, how sweet of you. I'm never going to fit this. And anyway, it doesn't go with my two pieces of cloth. One shirt and my ihram. So, but I remember receiving this shirt. And alhamdulillah, it was a difficult Hajj, and I did lots and lots of support to people. And there was a time where I went for about 36 hours with no sleep, where I was just busy with people. And after 36 hours, I came home in the middle of the night expecting, now, I'm sure no one is going to hassle me at 2 o'clock in the morning. And this one guy was there, sitting, waiting for me. And he says, Abdulaziz, could you take me for tawaf? And I just looked at him and I thought, yes. And it was such a blessed tawaf, even though I was absolutely exhausted. It was just so sweet, so beautiful. I mean, it still touches me to think about that tawaf, more than anything else on the Hajj, that moment. Alhamdulillah, then we parted. I was living in America at the time, he was living in the UK, so we flew, we parted I think in Turkey or somewhere. I says, inshallah, when I come to London, I'll see you. I got to London, phoned the agent up, and I says, you know that man, Uncle? I don't even know what his name is. So all I know his name is Uncle. I says, Uncle, have you got Uncle's name and details? They said, no. Uncle passed away. And then I realized how beautiful he was. And why? Because he'd spent his life, according to the other people, not in the best of ways. And that's why nobody really liked him, because they knew he was not particularly practicing in the deen. And of course, I didn't know anything of his past. All I know was what a beautiful state he was in. But I think my Hajj that year was probably the best Hajj I've done, or one of the best things not because of me, but because of him. And why was it so special? Was because he knew the value of time. He knew he was going to die. And every single second counted for him. And that's why he gave me his shirt with such love. And that's why when he stood there and he says, can you take me for tawaf? I looked in his face and I couldn't say, I haven't slept for 36 hours. This is the group that's made me, it's given me, I couldn't turn around and say any of that. I just says, of course. And somehow the energy came. So waqt or waqata means to limit. Your time is limited. Your time is limited. And I can kind of feel that in this trip for me, because one of the reasons I'm here with alhamdulillah, Abdul Hadi wrote every time you have a camp, or he writes to me, say, will you be able to come? And of course he knows the situation with Sarah, my wife, and usually I apologize. But this year he wrote, as normal, just routinely, and something came in my heart, inshallah I would like to come. If everything works, I'll bring my son, perhaps Sarah can't come. And then Shaykh Hafifuddin wrote that if Abdulaziz comes, then I will come. So khalas, that's a sign that we're both going to be here. So, but we only have 5 days, and he's living over there. So every single minute that I see Shaykh Hafifuddin, I think, I've only got 20 minutes now. I've only got this time. I've only got that time. I've only got this. So the quality of the time is related to the waqt, the limitation. So the title is Fada'il al-Awqat. So I said I'd skip the first word and go back to it. Right, so this is all about limitation. Okay, that's clear, yes? Fadl, what does Fadl mean? It's the exact opposite. Fadl means, Faddala or Faddila means Zada, means to increase. To increase. To go beyond. Or it means Baqiya, to remain. Now why is that important? Let me just tell a little story about the Prophet ﷺ. Once he was given a sheep as charity. So this sheep was given to the Prophet ﷺ, and he came home and he decided he'll give it to Sayyidatina Aisha to distribute as sadaqah to the poor. Of course, it was given to him as charity, and he wants to get the blessing of giving it to charity to the community, especially what we call the mustada'afin, the poorer ones, the weaker ones who stay in the Ahl Suffa. The people are called Ahl Suffa, who sleep in the mosque, basically refugees. So he gave it to Sayyidatina Aisha radiallahu anha, and she distributed the meat. And of course, what did she do? She knows that the Prophet ﷺ prefers this piece, the shoulder. This was his favorite. So she gives everything except the shoulder. And she says, yes, this is I'm going to cook this for my husband, for the Prophet ﷺ. So he comes after he's done his prayers and his duties, and he says, Ma baqiya, what remains? What have you distributed everything? What ma baqiya? What remains? And she replies that I have given everything. Wa baqiya, what remains is the shoulder. And then he says, no. What is here is the shoulder. Wa ma baqiya is everything else. Everything else remains. What does he mean by this? Baqiya means what actually remains, what counts. What remains of that is the rest of the sheep. This shoulder I'm just going to eat, but the rest will remain to Yawm al-Qiyamah and beyond. So baqiya means to remain. So if something is going to remain from your life, it has to have some kind of value. You have to have some fadl to it. The word fadl here means baqiya. Fadila means baqiya here. So what remains of uncle? Do you all love my uncle? I wish one day I might find out what his real name is. But I've told you this story of uncle. Does it affect anybody? Do you feel anything about this man? So therefore, what remains of uncle is this warmth, this love, and that memory of that tawaf. That's what baqiya. So he's gone. What fadl is left of his limited time continues. And this is not just this is not just stories, this is something we can actually practically use. We've just said that everybody's time is limited. So if we want to just say, for argument's sake, you've all got 1 month left, 30 days left. So what would you want to remain of these 30 days? After the 30 days have gone and you're in the ground, what would you want to remain? If you understand that, then you understand what the word fadl is. So that's one of the meanings of fadl. Another means to overcome, to win, to be victorious. That's why there's one of the poets has said, وَجَدْنَا نَشْحَلًا فُضِلَتْ فُقَيْمَةً. That he says, we found this tribe of Nashhal and they had overpowered Fuqayma, another tribe. So it doesn't really make much sense unless you're a desert Arab. We're not desert Arabs, so let me just give that as an example. I'm neither Danish nor Swedish. Okay. He knows where this is going. He knows. Actually, I shouldn't insult Denmark because it's his mother's country. Okay. But if many years back one would say, I came to this Norse land and Denmark had overcome Sweden. Oh, I can see who's smiling and who's not. Because no, that's not possible. But I would use the word fudilat. Because this fadl is to do with overpowering, winning, conquering. Okay. So if we would translate this title, Fada'il al-Awqat, we would translate it in really, there's so many ways you could translate it. How can you overcome the limitations of your time? How could you overcome the limitations of your lifespan? How can you get victory in the limited amount of time that you have left? How could you get something to remain and last forever, which is limited? How can you get benefit from the short time that you have? All of those titles would make sense, but they're not very catchy, are they? Which is why we're sticking to the title, The Blessings of Specific Times. But you can get what I'm saying about what the title actually means. Yep? No? Any questions about the title? Right, so do you understand why I said if you understand the title, you actually understand the book? Because if you know what the purpose of this book is, it's about taking this and getting advantage of the little time that we still have left. So, let's go to the introductions. So it has two forwards, one by Shaykh Afifuddin al-Jailani, who, alhamdulillah, we're blessed to have the company of during this trip, and the other is by Shaykh Muhammad bin Yahya al-Ninawi. And I love both of these teachers. And Shaykh Muhammad bin Yahya al-Ninawi is known for his hadith scholarship. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted him to write a foreword, and why I referred to him several times during translating, because some of the text is actually quite difficult, and there's some complicated issues in here in some parts, linguistically, and also in terms of what the content is in the hadith. So I wanted to relay these questions to Shaykh Muhammad bin Yahya al-Ninawi. However, there was one particular hadith, one particular narration, which was really, really problematic. And I said to the publisher that you can't publish it until I'm satisfied that this hadith is translated correctly. So you have to get this one checked by a number of scholars. So he sent it to a well-known translator, and he wrote back to say, this hadith gave me a migraine. This hadith gave me a migraine. That's all he said. He didn't help me with the translation, he just said it gave him a me grade. He sent it to another Shaykh and he says, I'm not sure the validity of this hadith. The question was not about the validity of the hadith, it was about specific words. Even Shaykh Muhammad bin Yahya al-Nanawi, he didn't comment. Shaykh Hafifuddin, we didn't ask him because I'm kind of shy. But one day he was sitting at a meal with one of the translators in Malaysia who'd come to visit him. And he said, so how are you getting on with the book? And he said, the Shaykh, Abdulaziz, is struggling with one hadith. He says, okay, let me see. And then he looked at it and he says, this word, and he pointed to one specific word. He says, this word means this. And then once I translated that word correctly, the rest of the hadith made total sense. And Ajib, it's so, this shows me that there's more to a book, more to knowledge than just words. Because you need a key. And all of the people that I'd sent it to are scholars of English language. I told them, get it checked by all of these people, with the exception of Shaykh Muhammad bin Yahya al-Nanawi. They were all scholars of English language. They're all well-known translators with degrees in translation or English or Arabic or both. But the key was this one word. Shaykh, oh, that just means limping. You come to it's hadith number 13. So he says, once you translated that one word, everything became clear. So that's why his forward comes first, because in the end he's the key to everything for this book, and which is why it's a blessing to be able to read it while he's present, or at least in our community. So he says, we, as believers, this is page 5 for those that are interested, know with certainty the importance of time in our lives. For Allah the Transcendent and Exalted has made this clear in His noble book by His glorification of time and expounding upon its value. So interesting, Shaykh uses the word believers. And that I think is quite deliberate, because not everybody that reads the Quran understands the value of what's in it. But those that believe do. So he starts by saying the believers actually know what the value of time is, because he swore oaths by portions of the day and night to show us the importance of those portions. Right, you need to understand what an oath is in Arabic, or even in English. If I were to say, I swear by Glasgow Rangers that I love Sweden more than Denmark. There are 3 people are laughing in this room. Why? Because they know how much I despise Glasgow Rangers. Okay? So does that have any value to you? For me to say, I swear by Glasgow Rangers? No, because you know it doesn't mean anything. It has no value. What if I were to say, I swear by my mum's second cousin twice removed. Her name was Halima. That I love Sweden and Denmark equally. Does that have some more value to you? This is my mother's second cousin twice removed. Her name is Halima. No? Okay, I'm not impressing you, am I? Okay, I swear by my mother. I swear on the life of my mother that I love this guy. And I've always loved him since the first time I met him in 2005. It's a long time, isn't it? It's 13 years. Yeah. Subhanallah. I think you just only... 2004. 2004. MashaAllah. Huh? Now do you believe? Does this have any value to you? Now I'm swearing on the life of my mother. Okay. What if I swear by Allah? Wallahi, wallahi, wallahi ahibbuhu. By Allah, I swear that I love this man. You can see it gets higher and higher according to the status of the thing that you're swearing by. And according to the scholars of Sharia, you're not allowed to swear by other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? This is not correct adab, it's not correct, appropriate to swear by your mother, to swear by your mother's cousin second time removed. And it's definitely not permitted for you to swear by Glasgow Rangers. All right. Not that I have any preference for Celtic. This is just a rumour that the champions for the last 5 years are the ones that I prefer. But this is just a rumour. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swear by? He swears by himself, occasionally. But if he were ever to choose something to swear by, can you imagine the status of that thing? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself swears an oath that he loves somebody, or that he gives you a piece of advice. Can you imagine the status of that thing? How great must it be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself to swear an oath? And what does he do? He swears an oath, wal asr, by time. He swears an oath, washamsi wa duhaha, by the sun and it's rising to its highest point of the midday and shining brightly over the world. Washamsi wa duhaha. Wallayli. And by the night. These are portions of the day, the afternoon, the night, the mid-morn. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears oaths, as Shaykh says, he is the one who... get the right one. He swore oaths by portions of the day and night to show us the importance of these portions. As this is the case with portions of the day, what of its entirety? He transcendent is he swears by the dawn, wal fajri, wal layalin ashr. He swears by the dawn and the 10 nights. And on another occasion, by the mid-morning, with duha, and else time by the last part of the night. All of these indicate the importance of specific times by which we may attain his pleasure. Indeed, Allah has established worship such as the 5 daily prayers, the fast, pilgrimage, and all the forms of worship within specific times. So even worship itself is restricted or contained within time. Everything is within time, and we just gave the example of the miqat of the Hajj. It has to be in specific times, has to be at a specific point. The Salah, can we play Salat al-Dhuhr now? No. Allah says you can't. It has no value. I remember somebody, we were traveling, and he just did all his, loads and loads of praise, like Taraweeh on the airport. And I was thinking, what are you doing? So I just asked him, well, so which prayer did you do? He said, no, I did all of them in advance for the plane. Because in our madhab, you can pray 10 prayers in one go, and you can't pray on a plane. I was thinking, interesting madhab. But he kind of prayed in advance. When I mentioned this to one of our teachers, he just laughed. What kind of fiqh is this? Time is specific. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set specific times for specific situations. So the prayer can be shortened, it can be combined under certain circumstances, but you can't book them in advance. It doesn't work like that. Okay? So that's what he's saying, that worship has limitations of time. Actually, because we've mentioned Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, we've mentioned his descendant, can I just go off track again? Because Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani says the same thing, but he puts one exception. He says there's one exception which is not limited by time. And this is rida, contentment with Allah's command. There's actually no limit to this. When Allah gives you something, you should be content. And when you open up your heart to Allah's plan, you will see there is, going back to the theme of where land meets ocean, is if you stand where the land meets the ocean, you will see that out there it's completely limitless. Muhit, bahrun, it's a complete bahar, it's complete openness. And that's how you feel when you submit to Allah's will. Not prayer, we're talking about Allah gives you a tribulation. Allah gives you a test. Example is his mother. When she came out of her coma and she smiled and she faced what Allah has given her, it's like standing at the ocean, because everything else is limited except this one, and there is no limit to this maqam. Shaykh Abdul Qadir says there's no limit to this maqam because there's no time involved. It's just submitting. And we have a sister in Norway who recently, alhamdulillah, I was blessed to visit. And I went to visit her because I wanted to get the barakah of her illness. So we were talking and she says, people are complaining that I used to do so much worship before and I used to guide and lead people, and now because of the operation I've just had, I'm limited in what I can do. And physically I can't move, and the operation to remove the cancer from her body was traumatic. So she says, give me some advice. I says, just be. Just be. What do you mean, just be? Just be. Allah gave you this so that you can be. You don't need to worry about praying and fasting. I mean, you pray and fast. You pray, well, fasting she's not going to do. But you pray according to the limitations that you have, and then just be. Because when you're just being, you're probably getting more than when you're praying in her state. What she's getting, because Allah chose that for her. And Allah is giving it to her, whereas when we're praying, we're giving it to Allah. What kind of gift is that compared to what He's giving to us? So just being in certain situations is where you will find the fadl. So when Shaykh Afifuddin says that Allah has established worship such as 5 daily prayers, the fast, the pilgrimage, and all forms of worship within specific times, so that we may pay attention to the time as well as to the actual worship, so that we understand the time as well as the worship. The Messenger said about the prayer, when asked which act is most beloved, he said, As-salah ala waqtiha, the prayer upon its time. As-salah ala waqtiha. Not just salah. The best is the prayer on its time. So the prayer is actually connected to the time if you want it to be really blessed. And this is why we must plan our time and take full advantage of the days of our lives before they end. As it is said, there are only three types of day. The first is the day that has passed, and all that is left of it is recompense. So the day that's gone by, khalas, yesterday, you're never going to get it back. Ma baqiya, what remains of yesterday? Alhamdulillah, sorry? What you did yesterday. Alhamdulillah. I was speaking with Sheikh Muhammad Muslim yesterday about, alhamdulillah, this little guy Idris. He attended the first part of the dhikr, and I deliberately wanted him to get to do the tahleel and the little bit of the next part, and then to leave, because I wanted it to be waqt, tawqeet. I wanted it to be limited, specific, because he's only 3. And then afterwards, I know the consequences, inshallah, will be that he will remember that La ilaha illallah, inshallah. So ma baqiya min al-bariha, what remains of yesterday, inshallah, I won't know until the future. So the fadl, the blessing of that dhikr, hopefully, will be much greater. The last time I was here, I would never have even dreamt of leaving before the end of the dhikr. Why would I even dream of leaving before? I've been wanting to do this dhikr for 2 years now, to join Shaykh Muhammad Muslim in this dhikr. but I left. What remains, inshallah, will be an investment in the future. And I know because when he went back to the room, what was he saying when he got to the room? Huh? He wasn't singing Wheels on the Bus. What was he saying? La ilaha illallah. So what remains of yesterday is what you achieved. And what you didn't achieve, khalas, sorry, it's past. The second is the last day, Yawm al-Qiyamah, which is awaited by that, is before us. Thus we have no control over it. So Yawm al-Qiyamah, you should, in fact, you know, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, when he heard about Jahannam, he very rarely cried. And when he heard about the Jannah, he very rarely smiled. You know, this is the adab. I can remember once when I was quite young being very influenced by, I went to a mosque in Liverpool, in Tabligh Jamaat. I was about 11 years old. And I remember looking at this guy with this beautiful, beautiful face. I think he must have been Sudanese. He was like really dark face, like really handsome African. And he just had this light on his face. And he was reading Quran. And he was just, and I could just see his face. And I was just astonished, just looking at his face change from smile to tears, to smile to tears, to smile. And I didn't know what was going on until afterwards. Many years later, I realized what was happening. He was actually changing according to the verses of Quran related to heaven and to hell and to Yawm al-Qiyamah. So some words were making him really look sad and painful, and others. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq didn't have this experience. This didn't affect him. But when he went past the grave, he would burst into tears. Somebody asked him, why when we talk about heaven and hell you don't cry or laugh or smile, but when you see the grave you do? You're so extremely affected. He said, because this is the door. Death is the door to everything else. So I don't need to worry so much about what happens after death. I need to worry about that moment. So when Shaykh Afifuddin is saying, and of course there are narrations that I said Abu Bakr as-Siddiq also had these emotions later at different times in his life about Yawm al-Qiyamah as well. But what Shaykh Afifuddin is saying is that Yawm al-Qiyamah sometimes you don't need to worry about. It's out of your time. What you need to worry about is the state you're in when you die. So the first day is that is past, and all that is left is recompense. The second is the last day, and we don't know what's going to happen on that. The third day is the day we are presently in. It is an opportunity to attain both the good of this temporal world and that of the eternal world. You tired? Sorry. Okay, you just leave that. Okay. Just check the time. So, there's a saying in English that yesterday is the past. Yesterday is the past. Tomorrow is the future. But today is a gift, which is why we call it the present. Today is a gift, which is why we call it the present. So there's the past, there's a future, and there's this present. Which, interesting, is why when we make dua, we put our hands like this to accept the present. Inshallah. Anybody like Bruce Lee? Yeah? Good. You know, he said some interesting things. He wasn't just a great fighter. He said, if you love life, don't waste time. If you love life, don't waste time. For time is what life is made up of. don't waste time if you love life, because life is what time is made up of. Okay, I thought I'll put that in before Shaykh Ninawi, out of adab to him. So he also writes a beautiful, interesting, but perhaps those people that are willing to buy the book from the brother over there.
Your arm.
Shukran. Oh, thank you so much.
You fold it double.
No, that's fine. Perfect. I'm going to read a tiny bit about what he reads from here. It's page 8 for those that are interested. Imam al-Bayhaqi, so Imam al-Bayhaqi is the author of the book, or the author of the book. He says, was one of the leaders of the Muslims and among their greats. He was the Imam, the scholar of the principles, the ascetic, the jurist, the conscientious. He was unique in his time and his memory, and was exceptional among his peers in his critical ability and meticulousness. He was one of the greatest students of Imam al-Hakim. May Allah's mercies and blessings be upon him, upon all of them. He used to record and memorize hadith from when he was young and excelled in the principles of the religion. He then travelled seeking the hadith of our master, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was an ascetic, satisfied with very little, beautified by his asceticism and scrupulousness. Being one who knew and acted upon his knowledge, he was one who gathered knowledge of hadith, jurisprudence, the science of criticism, hadith and the divergent opinions among the scholars of hadith and jurisprudence and the principles of religion. The book, Blessings of Specific Time, is about blessings, and it is appropriate that it is noted and published. Okay, perhaps we'll just jump from it. But I wanted to just mention that, afwan. And it is appropriate that it is noted and published as many consider it to be one of the Imam's lost texts. In it, Imam al-Bayhaqi specifies the sacred months and takes care to describe the extra blessings they contain compared to other months. It is compiled in the manner of the people of hadith, and it contains more than 300 hadith related by 51 of his different shaykhs. May Allah shower his mercy upon them. So that kind of describes what the book's about. It's a book of hadith, but it's more than a book of hadith. There are many things which are not hadith in here, which is why it doesn't say hadith number 1, hadith number 2. It says narration number 1, because all of them are transmitted, but not all of them go back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or we can't prove that all of them go back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So to make it safe, we say narration. The other thing about Imam al-Bayhaqi is that he wrote more than 1,000 books. Can anybody imagine writing 1,000 books? And we're not talking about small books. Shu'ab al-Iman on my shelf takes this much space. We're talking of 1,000 books, and we're not talking about, Dr. Seuss' Cat in the Hat. We're talking about really big stuff. But the beauty of his books, I've got one book, Kitab al-Asma wa Sifat, which ajib. Anyone come across this book is something special. And I have a special story about this, but perhaps I'll have to leave that for another day. This book came to me in a very interesting way. Perhaps we'll talk about another time. But this opens up so many doors of knowledge. And then when I looked at it, I realized Imam al-Bayhaqi probably only said about 10 sentences in the whole book. It's 2 volumes like this. And there's probably only 10 sentences of his own. Because every single sentence in the book is related by somebody else. Either Quran, or Hadith, or one of the scholars that came before him. And very, very rarely he will say, and I think, or I say. And he will say, Aqulu, and I say this. Now, his books are so brilliant because they're not his words. He manages to relay everything from the scholar. So that's something of the greatness of this author. And that's kind of an introduction to the book. So hopefully when we come to the next lesson, we'll look at, we'll enter into the book. Are there any questions about what's been said so far? I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Anyway, he's asleep, so I don't need to worry too much. Okay. سبحانك الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما.